Welcome back to the Morning Kickoff Show. I'm your host, Matt Witt. We are back to recap another Minnesota Vikings victory, where yet we still haven't played our best week of football. Minnesota Vikings squished the fish week 6 to progress to 5-1 on the season with a great defensive performance for the Minnesota Vikings, progressing to 5-1, big lead in the NFC North going into their bye week with 4 straight victories. Not only do the Vikings come up with a victory on an away game, but the Jets take care of the Packers. The Commanders take care of the Bears. This is 2 straight weeks where the Vikings were the only team in the NFC North to win. Now we have a big lead in the NFC North. Going into our bye week, we have a lot to improve before we can consider ourselves playoff teams. Enjoy this win. This is a win that maybe is hard to enjoy, but when you look at our record, when you look at this Minnesota Vikings team, it's hard not to be excited for what is to come this 2021 or 2022-2023 NFL season. Minnesota Vikings now big lead in the NFC North. Jets, Breece Hall just absolutely destroyed the Packers defense, 27-10. Yay. Packers coming off of a loss to both New York teams, the Jets, the Giants. I don't know what's next, but what we do know is that the Vikings are finally in control of the NFC North. Going into our bye week, like I mentioned, there is a lot to improve. Was this a convincing win? Did the Vikings finally have a convincing win? No. They definitely did not. The offense had 10 3-and-outs in this game, 9 or 10 3-and-outs in this game. I mean, Skylar Thompson, their backup quarterback, went out. We saw Teddy Bridgewater come out there. Both quarterback play was not great. You're playing a backup quarterback at the end of the day. Dolphins shot themselves in the foot with 97 penalty yards and 3 or 4 turnovers in this game. I mean, it was ridiculous all game long. Also, Nick Needham, their starting corner, went out this game. And the Vikings still managed to just squeeze a victory in this game despite having a terrible, awful, dreadful offensive performance. And it's so good to know that although our offense is the heart of this team, if they don't win us the game, the Vikings can win in many different ways. And this is what you have to be a playoff team, to be a Super Bowl contending team. You have to win in multiple different ways, which we've seen the Vikings do. Now, although the defense still struggled a lot in this game, the defense is the reason why we won this game. There were multiple big time plays, and that's really the core reason, and maybe the only reason why the Vikings won the game, was our big time defensive play. The Vikings had 10 big-time defensive plays in this game, sacking the quarterback, getting to the quarterback on third down, pressuring him, turning it over multiple times in this game. And this is what gave the Vikings the victory. First quarter in this game, Patrick Jones, first career NFL sack. Congratulations, Patrick Jones. It wasn't just a first career NFL sack. It was a sack where you're sacking them out of field goal range, holding the Miami Dolphins to 0 points in the first quarter. We knew Patrick Jones was going to have a bigger role in this game. Obviously, with DJ Wanham obviously missing this game, was a big hit for our Minnesota Vikings team, as DJ Wanham was a core player, a core transitional piece on this Minnesota Vikings edge rushing team. Patrick Jones, beast, excellent sideline to sideline player. This player fits perfectly under an Ed Donatel defense. One of the few players, actually, that I can say was with Mike Zimmer and fits better with Ed Donatel. And Patrick Jones did not stop there. He didn't just want his first career NFL sack. He wanted his second. Also came on third down in the third quarter. On top of this, Jordan Hicks has played great under the Ed Donatel defense. This is the reason why we brought him in. He struggled a little bit early in the season, but has really stepped up both in the pass rushing game, into coverage. Jordan Hicks has been great. He might not be the fastest player in this Vikings defense, but he is always a reliable tackler. You don't see Jordan Hicks mixing in the same tackles that you've seen a lot of these defensive backs miss every single week. Harrison Smith gets his 31st career interception. Another week, another Harrison Smith interception. This one came off of a bobbled pass and was giving to him. It was just big time plays the Minnesota Vikings defense did to capitalize on the Miami Dolphins offensive mistakes. Danielle Hunter had a bounce back game. He had a sack in garbage time, but more importantly, he forced a intentional grounding with Teddy Bridgewater. Would have been a sack if it wasn't an intentional grounding. On top of this, Patrick Peterson had a big day. He had a lot of pass deflection. He had his 30th career interception. Harrison Smith and Cam Bynum combined for a fumble recovery, both turnovers winning us the game. Zadarius Smith had 2 sacks in this game. It was just an unstoppable performance looking specifically at this Minnesota Vikings pass rushing team. This is something we have to see going forward, especially in those key matchups when we play the Buffalo Bills on an away game, when we play the New England Patriots on primetime. This is something we have to do week in and week out. Defensively, we are not a good team. However, when it comes to rushing the passer, this Minnesota Vikings is one of the best teams there is. Looking at, obviously, Patrick Jones stepping up in this game. Zadarius Smith being our core defensive pass rushing edge rusher on this Vikings team. Jordan Hicks, one of the best blitzing linebackers there is. Danielle Hunter, taking a step back this season. However, he did bounce back these last couple of weeks against some not so great matchups. DJ Wanham is obviously DJ Wanham. So this is something that we have to continue to see going forward, week in and week out, rushing the passer. And don't even get me started, but this Minnesota Vikings defensive front is great. Dalvin Tomlinson, another great free agent signing, came from last year for the Vikings. Entered this team. Harrison Phillips, another great free agent signing. I mean, there is something with this Minnesota Vikings team and finding value in free agency in the draft, and yet still not living up to our expectations. I just find it so shocking how you can bring in multiple players who've been very impactful for this team. Harrison Phillips, Dalvin Tomlinson, Zadarius Smith, Shannon Sullivan, the list goes on. And yet still defensively, we're leaving a lot of plays on the table. Could you just imagine if we combined this Vikings defensive performance with the offensive performance we saw against the Packers or the offensive performance we saw against the Bears? If we played like this every week, taking this defense and that offense, we would be in the Super Bowl. But obviously, we know as Vikings fans, that is an unrealistic ask. You can't play in every single environment and be perfect. This is an environment the Vikings are not used to playing in. They were playing in over 100 degrees heat on their sideline. I mean, Miami is a lot different than playing a home game in an indoor stadium, 12 o'clock with your own fans in the stands. So it's hard to ask that the Vikings will continue to play like this every single week. But what we can ask is that we will at least be able to rush the passer every week. We have 4 good edge rushers on this team. 4. On top of this, our defensive front has done a great job stopping the run, a great job pressuring the quarterback. Our secondary has struggled all season long, and I expect this to continue to be the case. Doesn't mean that we can't improve in the offseason. I mean in the bye week or going forward. Doesn't mean we can't improve. I just expect that there's no solution for this Vikings secondary to where we could expect to all of a sudden turn over the ball as many times as the Baltimore Ravens is, or playing coverage like the Buffalo Bills are. So like I mentioned before, this is not a convincing win for the Minnesota Vikings by any means, but what we can say is it's good to know that the Vikings are able to win in multiple different ways. The reason why I say it's not a convincing win, by the way, is just the fact that we had 9 or 10 3-and-outs on this team. Credit to the Miami Dolphins defense, but the Vikings offense should not be having this many 3-and-outs, and that goes without saying. Vikings defense left a lot of plays on the table, gave up over 400 yards to backup quarterbacks, but they capitalized on the offensive mistakes. Not only did the defense was able to come up with a lot of big-time plays that gave the Vikings this win, how about special teams? We have to continue to credit this Minnesota Vikings special teams. Josh Metellus' stop on 4th and 1 is the biggest one. Greg Joseph being an okay kicker has also kind of helped out this Viking special teams. Our return game was finally good, but the biggest player on special teams, Ryan Wright. This UDFA from Tulane, rookie UDFA, has been unstoppable. And can we get a segment on the Pat McAfee show where he just reacts to Ryan Wright's 2022 highlights? Because so far this season, week in and week out, he's had multiple huge plays that's led the Vikings to this 4 straight victories that they just had. Obviously, the biggest one in this one being that huge punt. He had a fake punt a couple weeks ago. Every week, having big-time plays. Please, Pat McAfee, react to this guy. So the special teams, outstanding, A+. Vikings defense, obviously, left a lot of plays in the field, gave up a lot of yards, came up with big-time plays, which won us this game. Vikings defense, special teams, thank you. Vikings offense, what happened? What happened? They were so unprepared. I mean, you knew going up against this Miami Dolphins defense that Christian Wilkins is a top 3 tech in the league. Xavier Howard is a beast of a cornerback. Their safety duo is good. Their linebacker duo is good. Entire defensive front and edge rusher feels like 1st and 2nd round draft picks. Why were the Vikings so unprepared? And I want to look at one specific player here because he was awful. Ed Ingram. This entire game. Terrible performance from Ed Ingram. I feel like if it was Garrett Bradbury who had the same game that Ed Ingram did, we wouldn't shut up about it. Everyone would talk about it on Twitter. Everyone would continue to say it. But the fact that it's Ed Ingram and he's kind of a liked player because he stepped up in the offseason, we're just dismissing the fact that this guy had one of the worst offensive line performances I've ever seen. Now, credit. He's going up against Christian Wilkins. Christian Wilkins, top 3 tech in the league. I mean, he's in the top 5 of offensive or defensive tackles. He's up there. He's up there. Technically, he's a defensive end because he's playing in a 3-4. He's still a 3 tech. Still, Minnesota Vikings offensive line struggled. Garrett Bradbury obviously struggled against Raekwon Davis in the pass blocking game and run blocking game. Wasn't a great performance from him. Jalen Phillips, Melvin Ingram off the edge did a great job getting to Kirk Cousins all game long. Kirk Cousins was not comfortable in this game. He had about 3 seconds to throw in just about every single pass that they set up. They failed to set up screens. They failed on the Justin Jefferson jet sweep. I mean, it was everything we did offensively went bad, is what it felt like. And this is what I mean to say here. You're going up against a Miami Dolphins defense that you know is loaded with talent. Move Kirk Cousins around. We just forget that Kirk Cousins has legs. Kirk Cousins can move. We saw it under a Kevin Stefanski offense where Kirk Cousins was rolling out to the right, rolling out to the left, bootleg play action passes. Where is that Kirk Cousins? We would see it where Kirk Cousins was playing under a worse offensive line under Kevin Stefanski, but was able to buy himself enough time to complete 60-yard bombs to Stephon Diggs on play action, bootleg passes, rolling out to the right, rolling out to the left. Move him around, because games like these, you can't drop back Kirk Cousins the entire game and expect for him to have enough time to complete a deep shot to Jefferson, deep shot to Thielen. You just can't do this against defenses like the Miami Dolphins defense has. Vikings offensive line, this is one of the better offensive lines we have seen in Vikings history. Vikings history has had a lot of good offensive lines. This is one of the best offensive lines that we've seen in the last couple of decades for the Minnesota Vikings offense. Christian Darrisaw is playing at an all-pro level. Brian O'Neill is still a beast at the right tackle position. Ezra Cleveland is quietly having a breakout season for him as well. And the Minnesota Vikings player of the game, Harrison Smith. I gave Harrison Smith the player of the game here, 6 total tackles, interception, and a forced fumble. Harrison Smith, I feel like if he didn't get those turnovers, we wouldn't have won the game. That's why I give him player of the game. Left a lot of plays on the table. Had some blown coverage. Harrison Smith, I feel like, is hitting kind of that decline that we see a lot of safeties his age start to fall off. Still great. Nothing against Harrison Smith. He's still one of the best safeties in the league. Hitting a decline for him is saying a lot when his peak was very high. Harrison Smith, future Hall of Famer, 31st career interception. If you don't believe he's a Hall of Famer at this point, I want whatever you are smoking. If I was giving it to the most perfect player in defense, I'd probably say Zadarius Smith, because Zadarius Smith has been nothing but perfect so far this season. Great free agent acquisition. Upcoming schedule for the Minnesota Vikings. Like I mentioned, the Vikings do not have a matchup this week 7. Good spot to try to fix what your mistakes have been on offense and defense here. Coming off of the bye week, the Vikings will play the Cardinals and Commanders. Cardinals at home, Commanders on an away game. Both 2-4 opponents right now. Off to rough starts to their season. Then after those couple opponents, we have 3 straight hard matchups. Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Oh my gosh. Please, Vikings, please be competitive in that game. We play the Cowboys at home the week after that. Cowboys, Cooper Rush or Dak Prescott play in this game. Don't know. At the end of the day, it's going to go into the fourth quarter and come down to the final plays. We play the Patriots at home Thursday Night Football. Patriots have been very good as of recently under Bailey Zappi right now, which is pretty surprising. Bailey Zappi is a beast. Looking at that, doesn't matter who we play on Thursday Night Football. It's going to come down to the fourth quarter too. That's basically how it doesn't matter who our opponent is. It's going to come down to the wire. And that's just what we see time and time again with the Minnesota Vikings. But still, great win for the Vikings, 5-1. Great start to the season. I say great start. Great first half to the season. Going into your bye week, week 7. Very comfortable, coming off of 4 straight victories. Great job, Minnesota Vikings. Excellent performance once again. Well, not excellent performance. We'll say great to have another win. Minnesota Vikings fans, enjoy this bye week. Going to be fun to watch football next week. We get to see Packers play once again, and hopefully we can see Aaron Rodgers have the same disappointed look that he's had these last couple of games. Let me know what y'all think.